This is episode 25 of the Battle of Ohio podcast. The Browns are once again a playoff team after an 18-year drought, following a 24-22 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bengals embarrassed themselves with a brutal 38-3 beatdown on their home turf against the Baltimore Ravens, but they secured the number 5 overall pick, and it wasn't enough to get Zach Taylor fired. So, anyway, heading into next week, we all want to see a Browns playoff victory because the Steelers still suck.
The Steelers still indeed suck. We'll see y'all on Sunday night to be exact.
Welcome to the Battle of Ohio podcast, where we follow the revival of the historic rivalry between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that's going to be
a fun game.
I think it's going to be a good game. Although I do have, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but you've got some, your Browns have got a couple of things to answer from for that game because that was not nearly as decisive as it should have been when you're playing against Mason fucking Rudolph.
He had 300 yards against us, man.
Exactly.
Our defense is Swiss cheese.
But before we get into that, why don't you tell me what you're drinking today, Thomas?
All right. So today, I'm not drinking anything special today. I'm just going back to the old-fashioned, the beer that got me here. That's the Bud Light Orange. It is not because I don't want to get creative and find new beers. It's because I bought a 40-pack of these. I need to finish them out. So,
yeah, I still I was doing those Schafferhofers for a little while. I still got a couple of those left. I should probably finish them off.
I also got a lot of Twisted Teas. but I feel
you can
like
only do Twisted Tea so many times before it gets the joke gets
I know.
Out, I think.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. That's why I'm not doing Twisted Tea because I think
Right.
I wore that joke out. Yeah, I'm done with the Twisted Tea jokes. They're funny for a week. I was like, all right, I just want to do this for a week, and I think I wore it out. So I'm done with the Twisted Tea jokes.
So I am drinking a beer that absolutely fascinated me when I because I pick up my variety packs at Jungle Gyms and I just pick out whatever I haven't put on the podcast yet and whatever looks good. So I found this one that just like visually looked absolutely fascinating. I can't find any information about it because it doesn't really have a label on it or anything, but it's called Lucky Buddha.
Okay.
And it's like the glasses. I don't know if you can really see that there, but it's actually shaped like Buddha and it's textured and everything. And I don't even know. I think it's a Pilsner, but well, actually, I could probably figure out right now. I have a computer right in front of me. All right, the Lucky Buddha beer is brewed. So it's a Chinese beer, which I guess that's not terribly surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense, right?
So it's a beer brewed in China, and it's like an Asian style lager. So I mean, I love lagers. I don't know if I've ever had an Asian style lager, but I can't imagine it could be that much different than a regular lager. Let's find out. That's a little different.
Is it good?
I don't know. It's kind of almost tastes like there's like a little bit of honey in there or something, but I don't think I'll be buying that again. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's just kind of like, why buy that when there's better stuff available?
Yeah, I feel
it's like I'm not gonna say don't buy it. If you're a lager connoisseur and you just want to have every different kind of lager, I'm not saying it's a bad one. Go ahead and have it or whatever. I'm just saying that's definitely not my go-to. It's all right, but kind of lays on the tongue a little weird. It's all right though.
Okay, so no Lucky Buddha.
All right. So I guess let's go ahead and start talking about these games.
Okay.
Which one should we talk about? Let's go ahead and talk about the Bengals game first.
All right.
Because I want to leave a little bit of suspense for that, talking about that Browns game. That was awful. Like, just absolutely disgusting. I actually said after the game and it did not come to pass. But I said after the game that if there was any way that Zach Taylor could get himself fired in Week 17, that would be it. It basically, like, the defense was absolutely atrocious. By the way, they looked like the last time we played the Ravens. The defense was really like horribly atrocious in the first quarter, and then kind of got things figured out after that. This time it was like they were about as horribly atrocious as they were last time in the first quarter, but then they kept being that bad. It never let up. And then and man, Brandon Allen had an awful day. He only completed 6 passes for 48 yards and 2 interceptions. Yeah. One of those interceptions, by the way, was like at the goal line, and I mean we were already kind of like buried at that point anyway. But it's just kind of like if they had finished off that drive with that Travion Williams 54-yard run, or 44, or however long it was, if they had actually finished that drive off with a touchdown, that maybe could have been some momentum for them to start kind of getting things together. And I still don't know if they would have won at that point, but maybe they could have like come out a little bit more respectable than they did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was really, really bad looking. The offensive line actually looked pretty good, and that makes it even worse because, like, you know, Brandon Allen, with as bad of a day as he had, can't even use the offensive line as an excuse. They only allowed 2 quarterback hits. There wasn't even a ton of pressure on him. So I mean, like, this was all Brandon Allen looking like crap. Some of it was like the receivers not doing a great job getting open and not doing a great job catching the balls, but most of his passes were like, you know, they were like, I mean, I wouldn't call them like egregiously thrown, like his accuracy wasn't egregiously bad, but he wasn't hitting receivers where they needed to be hit. You could tell he had the right idea. He just didn't actually get the ball where it needed to go, and that was the whole game. You know, this right here is why Brandon Allen is, I don't think, ever going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think, you know, if anything, this is proof that the Bengals can probably hang on to him as the backup quarterback for a while, because he doesn't have he's got some talent to him, but he's whether or not he's going to bring that talent in any given game is pretty unreliable. And when it comes to backup quarterback, you're always looking for reliability. And I don't know if Brandon Allen gives you that reliability.
Yeah, it looked like you know, Brandon Allen hadn't even started 16 games yet this season. Or I'm sorry, 16 games yet in his career, I don't think.
No.
So, you know, I mean, so, you know, he probably still improving. Like you said, he's a viable backup quarterback. And what you need from a backup quarterback is, can you give us 1 or 2 good games in a row when our starting quarterback is out? And I think Brandon Allen is more than capable of doing that. He's not a starting quarterback because he's not going to be consistent.
I will say when he's older and a veteran, he's had time to develop and stuff. At that point, he might be kind of like a well sought after veteran quarterback, veteran backup quarterback. But I think nothing more than backup. He's never going to be one of those guys people bring in to be like a bridge starter or anything like that. Yeah. He's just going to be a backup like forever, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good last game. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the Ravens, you also got to realize Ravens situation. Ravens coming in here playing for their playoff lives. The Bengals are playing Week 17. So like, there's 2 different mindsets coming to this game. There's 2 different levels of intensity. I mean, Lamar Jackson looked like he was just playing with y'all. Like, Lamar Jackson just looked really good out there. Our defense didn't do any much better against Lamar Jackson, so I'm not even gonna knock y'all for like not being able to stop Lamar Jackson. That pass to Marquise Brown was just pretty. He looks more and more like a running back every day. He looks more and more like a running back every day. But like, he can be a running back all he wants, because, like, you know, he scores touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That offense scores touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins finally looking like a viable running back. It is just, man, yeah, you can't ignore what's going on in Baltimore right now. They're just a good team.
it seemed like every time the Ravens touched the ball, and I know the Bengals don't have the best defense, and the Ravens' offense has been hot lately, but the biggest note that I took from the game while I was watching it was it seems like every time the Ravens touched the ball, it was like about a 10 or 11 yard, like whether it be a run or a pass. Either way, they were getting a first down on like every single play at one point. And it was just kind of like, how can you possibly put this defense out there? By the way, the fact that Lou Anarumo, we're recording this as of 2:30 p.m. on Monday, and the fact that there's been these head coach firings that have come out, even like the Dolphins announced that they're firing Chan Gailey, but we haven't heard anything about Lou Anarumo. And actually, Zach Taylor in his press conference this morning, he was actually defending Lou Anarumo a little bit. I mean, that it wasn't necessarily like it wasn't necessarily the kind of language that means I'm not going to fire this guy, but it's definitely the kind of language that could mean I'm not going to fire this guy. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder here, like, what the hell is going on? Like, did you not see what that defense did last night? Like, I mean, I know we got a lot of guys out, but like I said, every time the Ravens touched the ball, at one point in the game, it seemed like every time they touched the ball, it was a first down. And, Lamar only finished with 113 yards passing, but he also finished with nearly 100 yards rushing, and he tossed 3 touchdowns and only 1 interception. So it's like, the yards at that point kind of don't matter so much because it's efficient. It gets it done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's
He
what I'm saying.
wasn't sacked, and he was barely pressured.
He was barely tackled. By the way, I just watched that pick by Brandon Allen, and looking at it, like, he had the dude was he probably thought that he probably thought he could be a hero right there. And I just don't think that he had the arm strength, or he didn't have the arm strength for that touchdown. Because he tried to throw off his back foot across his body. It's throwing across your body never works well. The only person I ever seen, I'm about to say, unless you Patrick Mahomes. I was just about to get it to. The only person I've seen that can make that throw off the back foot across their body, 20 yards across field, is Patrick Mahomes. Like, that is a harder throw. Like, when you look at it, it doesn't look that hard. But, I think people have something called Madden. I was actually just watching a video on TikTok where they was talking about how the throws that they make in Madden aren't realistic.
Yeah.
And it's not. And so people play these Madden games. They think these quarterbacks can make the same throws they make in Madden. Like, no, that throw is almost impossible. Like, you're talking about turning around, stopping on a dime, falling back on your back foot, and then throwing it 25 yards while fading away. This isn't basketball where you can just make a fadeaway jumper. You can't make a fadeaway throw. It's really hard to make a fadeaway throw. That's why fadeaway jumpers in basketball are always airable, because when you attempt it, you're falling back and it takes a lot of strength to do. The same thing in football. You can't. It's so hard to do a fadeaway pass.
Also, you got to remember,
and then across your body. Come on.
Also, you got to remember that in basketball, when you're making a fadeaway jumper, they're not allowed to goaltend. Well, you're totally allowed to goaltend, like, as far as like protecting a pass. Now, you can't like grab the guy or like affect the actual person, but you can totally go up and try to do whatever the fuck you want and just get in the way and like
get in the way of the ball.
If you're making a play on the ball and you make contact with the dude, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, you can't pull the guy away. You can't like pass interfere, but you can you can't. It really shouldn't be. Maybe they should change the name of the penalty from pass interference, because it's not really pass interference, it's receiver interference. That's what the penalty is. You're not allowed to mess with the receiver. The pass you can do whatever the hell you want with. So they don't have that kind of protection for the defenders in the NBA. So you can do it. You can attempt those kind of fadeaway whatevers whenever you want.
Yeah. But by the way, I heard this. I heard another like kind of rule thing. I heard this when I was watching the game yesterday. Somebody said that they think that, I'm not sure if you agree with this rule or not, but somebody said that that they think that defenders shouldn't be allowed to touch a receiver till one of his feet hit the ground. I don't agree with that. So like, all right, so like, how receivers catch, all right, so how receivers catch the ball in the air, and sometimes when they're in the air, a defender comes and tackles them while they're in the air.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with that. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. This is something I heard that just piqued my interest. Because I'm like, there's times where say you're a receiver, you catch the ball, and then as soon as you catch it, boom, defender hits you. That's football, right? That's football. But I guess what they were saying is that when you get tackled in the air, while you still have the ball, you can lose your feet from under you, and it could leave more openness for more injuries. But that goes along with the saying, don't ever leave your feet when you're a receiver. I don't know. I think it's stupid. I don't know. I think it's stupid. I'm not gonna say which gender the person was who said that.
But I think you kind of just did.
Anyway, back on topic though. Yeah, Brent Allen had a bad game, but I don't think that you should hold a lot of stuff back on the Bengals from this game because of Week 17 game and you guys are out of the playoff hunt. I think a lot of
like.
Well, I just think that
you're fighting for respect at this point. The only way, in my opinion, to really get the fan base completely back on board with this coaching staff was to finish off this end of the year run. And they didn't do that. Now I'll give Brandon Allen a little bit of credit. He could have gone off and had as good a game as he's been having, and it wouldn't have mattered. The Ravens put up 38 points. It's Brandon Allen ain't going to put up no damn 40 points. So I don't know. It was just it was a very it was kind of a doomed situation for him to begin with, and I don't know.
I just don't think that we should. Well, look, they won what? They won 2 out of the last 3. You beat Steelers. You beat not Patrick Mahomes. You beat Sean Watson and the Texans without Joe Burrow. You T. Higgins solidified himself as one of the best young up and coming receivers, along with him.
And then he hurt his hamstring during the game.
Yeah, but he'd be okay, right?
I haven't heard anything, but Trey Hopkins actually tore his ACL during the game. That has been news, but I haven't heard anything about T. Higgins, which I think is a good sign.
Yeah, I think T. Higgins should be okay. Hopefully, because you don't want that to happen. So I think a lot of players are just I think a lot of it is just let's just get through this game. Well, they didn't get through the game without any injury, but you can't like a team that had every reason to just lay down and die the last couple of games of the season after Joe Burrow went down in November. They showed a lot of fight the last couple of weeks, and
this week,
they lost Week 17, but they won 2 out of the last 3, so you can't really.
It wasn't just that they lost this week; is that they just got completely steamrolled. It's like it almost. I know this isn't the case because they're professionals and this is never going to happen. But visually, it looked like they went out there and they didn't give a shit.
Yeah, possibly. Like I said, you got one team that was fighting for their playoff hopes, and you had another team that's playing their last game of the season. So the mentalities are different. And I know we say that players that every game you come out, you should be motivated every game. But I'll argue, I think there's a level of motivation per game. I think that the level of intensity for each team was on different levels during that game. The Ravens were in playoff mode. The Bengals were in last game of the season mode. And it's not, because I don't want to sound like I'm ripping the team, because I'm not, because I like this group. I like this Bengals group. I just think that, when you have a young team, it is very easy for them to go well, this is the last game of the season anyway. So they kind of checked out.
Quite possibly.
I don't
know. That still kind of bothers me, though, to get to the last little thing I want to talk about as far as the Bengals are concerned, then we can get on to the Browns. But probably the most significant thing to talk about right now as far as the Bengals is concerned is the fact that Zach Taylor is coming back in 2021 as head coach. Now, first of all, I want to put it out there. I am in favor of this decision. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think Oh, you know what? I did a little bit of research. I said I was going to do this. I've said I'm going to do this throughout the season on the podcast. I said I'm going to do this, and just kind of out of curiosity, see what would have happened. But I went through the season, and I picked out every single game where if you change one play, then the game could have gone a completely different way for the Bengals, and you could have flipped the result on its head. Um, and I actually found, I think, I found 5 games, arguably 9 games, because I think there's 4 games that had we been playing Joe Burrow instead of Brandon Allen or Ryan Finley, I think we would have won those games. So, like, Washington, we were on pace to win that game until Joe Burrow got hurt, and then the entire team's everything just kind of like fell apart for the team at that point. Then there was the Giants game, which we were doing okay in, but we weren't doing a whole lot on offense. But I think with Joe Burrow, we would have been doing a lot better offensively. The Cowboys game, I think Joe Burrow probably could have kept their heads on them so that they wouldn't have like three turnovers in a row to start the game. I don't think would have happened with Joe Burrow at quarterback, because I think after that first one, he would have kind of like gotten everybody together, calmed them down. And I really don't think that, the guys that they had in were doing too much with that. The Dolphins game, the way the Dolphins played us, I really, really, honestly, totally think that we could have won that game.
I agree.
So that plus the other 5 games that I found,
too.
which it was actually a couple of things against the Chargers, but like any of those things go different and we win that game. But AJ Green's bullshit offensive pass interference call against the Chargers, we ended up. I think that was that led to the field goal that Randy Bullock missed for 31 yards. So we ended up going from 7 points to settling for 3 to getting 0, all in that frame of time. If we had gotten that AJ Green touchdown, we would have won that game. Started off the season 1-0. The first game against the Browns, we only lost by, 5 points? There were some overturned plays, and I'm not going to sit here and blame the refs. I'm going to say, there were a lot of little tiny mistakes that the Bengals made that if they had done them slightly better, then it would have been a different result because that game was so close. The defense finding a way to not collapse against Carson fucking Wentz at the end of the game and allowing that game to go to overtime. And eventually, we tie that game. That's 3 wins right there, on top of the 4 that I already talked about. Randy Bullock not missing a 48-yard field goal, and then Joe Burrow not being intercepted in field goal range against the Colts in that epic collapse that we had. But we still could have won that game at the end. That's how well we were mostly playing throughout that game. Joe Burrow not fumbling on a key drive when the Bengals were up 7 against a floundering Browns offense early in that second game that we played. That could have turned the tide in that game. So that's 5 games, plus the 4 that I'm saying that we would have won after Joe Burrow got hurt, that we would have won if Joe Burrow was in. So that's 9 games. We would have been 13-3. Now, obviously, that's assuming all of these things happen, and that's a lot of things to say that happens that change the season around. But the point is, per game, that's like 1, maybe 2 things per game. And if you change those, the Bengals are 13-3. And so I'm not saying, the Bengals, got robbed or whatever like that. What I'm saying is this is a team that has the right stuff to, go out and do what they need to do. They just need to actually put it all together for 60 minutes every single week. And that's the problem they've been having is they've been doing pretty good, but they've been slipping when it matters. They've been slipping in key situations. So that's why I don't want to hit the reset button yet, because a new head coach is going to mean hitting the reset button, and it's going to mean completely changing the scheme, and a lot of the players most likely means rebuilding the rebuild. And I think the Bengals are way too close to finding success to rebuild the rebuild. Now, okay, if we suck this much next year, like at the end of 2021, and we're still having the same exact problems, and the Bengals can't find ways to win close games, et cetera, et cetera. At that point, okay, something's going on with the coaching, something's going on with the direction here. Doesn't really matter what the talent's like if they can't put it all together. Just hit the reset button. I'm fine if that's still happening next year. Fine, get rid of Zach Taylor or whatever. But I don't think you do that after 2 years when there has been plenty of stuff that's been building. And like I said, had a couple of things, had 1 or 2 things per game gone differently this year, we could have been 13-3 division champions and probably the most talked about turnaround story of all time. From number 1 pick to 13-3.
Yeah, I don't I said all year I don't think that the Bengals, as bad as their record. I said on this podcast what was hard, but I don't think they're as bad as their record. I still don't think they're as bad as their record. I think that there's a lot of good pieces of this team. I like your tight end. You got a really good young tight end. You got a really good young receiver core. You got your quarterback of the future. I think Zach Taylor is the appropriate coach. So I think there's a lot of culture building blocks that you guys have there.
One more thing that I wanted to address about the Bengals coaching situation, and then we can get on to the Browns. Following up with what I said, I think Lou Anarumo, it's about time to admit that, this system is not working out for him. He's had 2 years to build this defense, and it's gotten worse every year. I believe they finished 27th in the NFL last year. They finished 30th in the NFL this year. It's bad. Like Lou Anarumo has failed as a defensive coordinator. I know he's had a lot of issues to work with, but I feel like a better, more experienced defensive coordinator could have gotten more out of, this team. Maybe not like, best defense in the NFL, but I think that a better defensive coordinator, more experienced defensive coordinator, somebody like Gus Bradley, I feel like he could have gotten like, at least like middle of the pack defense. And if you got a middle of the pack defense, the way that the offense played at times this year, I think you have a much better record than you do.
Yeah, but I don't think the AFC is going to be this good. I don't think the AFC is going to be this good next year. I think a couple of these teams are going to fall off.
Well, I think the AFC North might be this good next year because even if
the AFC North
falls
is going to
off
be
a little bit,
yeah.
I think the Bengals are going to get better. The Ravens aren't going anywhere. The Browns aren't going anywhere. I don't think. It's still the Browns. We'll find out, but.
You stay hating, bro.
That is not a statement of hate. That is a statement of fact, and the fact that, like, let's be honest, man, for the last 18 years, I haven't seen shit from you guys as far as, like, staying consistent. I hope I'm wrong, because honestly,
in the last 18
Browns
years,
we never
had this much talent. We never had this much talent.
You could argue that you did last year, and the previous year. You could argue that you had a lot of talent the previous year and didn't do shit with it, but.
Well, but we had Fat Forrest Gump on our coach. We already went over that.
I am not going to hate too hard on the Browns. Now, rivals and trash talk, that's all fun. But I'm also not going to hate too hard on the Browns because, to be completely honest with you, if you guys do well, that means this podcast is going to do better. People might be more interested to tune into a Bengals-Browns podcast if the Bengals and Browns are both good, or if at least one of them's good. I don't know. But point being, I am okay with the Browns having success at this point. I'm not going to be that kind of hater. I am going to be honest, though. Like, you got a lot to show me. So, speaking of which, let's talk about this Browns game. Y'all beat the Steelers backups 24-22, and you almost blew it. So, like, don't get me wrong. You won. Baker Mayfield had that basically game-winning scramble at the end of the game. But the fact that it came down to the wire like that, especially after y'all got out to a pretty substantial lead. What was it like?
17-3.
Yeah, 17-3 at some point. Mason Rudolph severely outplayed Baker Mayfield, man. He went 22 for 39 for 315 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only throwing 1 interception. Baker Mayfield completed 17 of 27 for 196 yards and a touchdown. The difference in this game was the fact that the Browns still put up 192 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, versus the Steelers, who have no rushing game, put up 85 yards and no touchdowns. But despite all that hype about, it's Myles Garrett versus Mason Rudolph again, y'all didn't sack him once. So I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
like,
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. My team's 11-5 right now.
well, no, okay, you know what? You're clearly the mind me. That's not my point. I'm just saying.
I
But
know. I know
last
you know.
podcast, you remember what I said? I said last podcast, this is going to be a playoff game for you guys, and
Mhm.
not just in the idea that you got to win to make it to the next round or whatever, but it's going to be a playoff game in the idea that this is really going to define people's level of belief in the Browns. And to be completely honest with you, you squeaked by the Steelers backups, and now you have to play the Steelers starters.
Yep.
So and you have to go to Pittsburgh to do it. So
Yep.
I mean, like I'm not saying the Browns can't win. I'm by no means saying the Browns can't win. The Browns have been kind of up and down and inconsistent this year anyway. So let's be honest, y'all aren't going to go to the Super Bowl because at some point in the playoffs you're going to have a bad game. I hope you beat the Steelers
Or you
though.
gotta
I
play the
really
Chiefs.
do because at the end of the day, I hate the Steelers as much as you do.
Yep.
But I have trouble believing that that's going to happen after what we saw.
You know, I am in such a good mood today. So I'm just going to say this. First of all, the fact that this team is 11-5 after being 6-10 last year is phenomenal. Second of all, the fact that we had to win in a year that is one of the hardest years in history to make the playoffs in the AFC, even though there are 7 teams. The fact that you got to win 11 games to make the playoff in the AFC, and the Browns were able to break their streak goes without saying. But also, I'm not going to necessarily say that Mason Rudolph played a better game than Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield didn't have a bad game. First of all, one thing that impressed me about Baker Mayfield this game, I mean, he just did what he had to do. He made a lot of plays with his feet. He made a lot of scrambles. In fact, the play to ice the game was actually a scramble for a first down. He did have a couple mixed throws, about 10 of them to be exact. But he had a lot of great throws, a lot of clutch throws, a lot of third down throws to put us in range. And honestly, though, if I'm being real with you, why would you show your best game plan to a team you're gonna face next week? So I'm not.
True. That's a good point.
The problem with the Browns is they don't have a secondary, especially we don't have Denzel Ward. Olivia Vernon tore his ACL or ruptured his ACL last week, so he's out for the season. So that's bad news for our pass rushing. So that's going to be bad news going to next week.
Mm-hmm.
But all things aside, I'm not worried about all of that right now. The biggest thing is the Browns won 11 wins this year, and they made the freaking playoffs. The Browns are 4-1 against teams that made the playoffs last year. They are 4-1 against teams that made the playoffs last year. And that goes a long way. How they played against the Titans, how they played against the Ravens the second time. Coming back and beating the Steelers after the Steelers beat them. This team have shown a lot of growth and a lot of grit. And we talk about one great offseason away. The Browns one great offseason away. They're a Super Bowl contender. There could be you beef up that defense. The Browns could be one of the best teams in the league. If not the best team in the league, you beef up that defense. But that offense, when that offense is rolling, That defense, though, those cornerbacks are trash. We are great at stopping the run, and we are great at getting pressure on the quarterback. Because we did get a lot of pressure on Mason Rudolph. He threw a lot of balls early. In fact, the last play of the game, 2-point conversion that he had to tie the game, he actually missed that 2-point conversion because he had pressure in his face. I don't care. They made the playoffs this year. I'd rather say that than say they did not make the playoffs. And they made the playoffs. So at the end of the day, they made the playoffs. And that's all I care about.
They did make the playoffs. And if I was a Browns fan, I'd be thinking the same thing. Like, you know what? I don't care how they did it. The fact that they did it is better than anything that we've had in a long, long, long time. But right now, I'm not trying to speak to Browns fans. I'm trying to speak to the Browns organization. Y'all lost to the Jets. Y'all lost to the Ravens, and y'all almost lost to the Steelers' backups. And so, are you really thinking that next week you're going to go into Pittsburgh and you're going to win a playoff game? against the Steelers starters who absolutely like killed you last time you guys played them. There's a lot, and like I said, Browns fans enjoy it, have fun. That's awesome. We'll see you next week, and we'll watch the game and see what happens. But the Browns organization, you guys cannot feel comfortable with what you put out there this week and what you've been putting out there the last like 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know. If you're hoping for something more than just making the playoffs, this is not the way to do it. You guys are falling ass backwards into the playoffs right now, and I find it tough to believe that you're going to beat, as much as I want you to, I find it tough to believe that you're going to beat the Steelers in the first round.
I am just going to look to the camera, drink my beer, and say one thing. Da 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 da.
Fair enough.
We'll see. Hopefully that aged well.
Who do you feel on the Browns deserves? It doesn't get enough credit for the way they played this week. Who's your underrated player of the week for the Browns?
No, I'm actually going to say Kareem Hunt, not because Kareem Hunt's not an underrated player, but for underrated play. With 1 minute and 12 seconds left on the clock, Baker Mayfield still had no timeout. Baker Mayfield ran for a first down to ice the game. Mm-hmm. Now Baker Mayfield made the play, pointed to the end zone. Everybody went nuts. But we forget one person that didn't get enough appreciation. That play was Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt had a great lead block to help Baker Mayfield get around the corner and get that first down to send the team into the playoffs. So Kareem Hunt, I gotta appreciate you for that block. What a great block you did. You are a great player, sir. And you're never going to buy beer in Cleveland. In fact, if I ever see you, I'll buy you a Twisted Tea.
Fair enough. Okay, so for the Bengals, God, all of y'all suck. None of y'all deserve an award. You're all terrible. Every single one of you. Like T. Higgins, I don't know. Maybe I could call T. Higgins the underrated player of the week because he had that huge 40-yard catch or something like that ended up getting overturned, and it didn't matter. He hurt his hamstring on that play, and he went out, and he basically ended up with no stats on the game. But it also didn't really matter. So how underrated can you really be when it didn't do anything? And other than that, he didn't do anything. So if I had to pick, I mean, really, if I'm forced to pick one person, because I really don't want to pick anybody, they're all awful. If I had to pick one person, I think to say you're the underrated player of the week, it'd be rookie linebacker Akeem Davis-Gaither. So he didn't do a lot, but nobody did much. But what he did do is he was consistently in Lamar Jackson's face, not getting pressures, but getting his hands on the ball. Akeem Davis-Gaither got up in Lamar Jackson's face, batted the ball out of the air on one play that was potentially going to lead to some momentum, and then the team collapsed around him and it didn't matter. Earlier in the game, sometime near the beginning of the second quarter, Akeem Davis-Gaither, with assistance from Marcus Hunt, actually, I believe it was a tip pass from Marcus Hunt, Akeem Davis-Gaither came down with an interception on Lamar Jackson. And at that point, the Bengals are only down 10-0. You have that interception by Akeem Davis-Gaither. If the Bengals offense can get anything remotely halfway decent together on the ensuing drive instead of the 3-and-out that they did have, I think they got a 3-yard run, and then Brandon Allen threw 2 incomplete passes. But if the offense had managed to do anything they had the ball at the Ravens' 47-yard line. Akeem Davis-Gaither basically gave him half a field to work with. If they'd gone and gotten a touchdown on that drive, then the game is 10-7 at the beginning of the second quarter, and you don't have this steamroll of momentum from the Ravens. If you just want an example of how deflating this game was, that whole sequence with Akeem Davis-Gaither getting the interception and then the Bengals doing absolutely nothing with it, that just defined the entire game. but I do feel that he deserves a shout out for that. And I think over the next couple of years, Akeem Davis Gaither is, I feel, going to develop into a pretty solid rotational linebacker for the Bengals. Maybe not a full time starter, but I think a good rotational player, kind of like we had with Lenny Ray back in the day.
Yeah.
So shout out Akeem Davis Gaither. So the final topic of the podcast is always the state of the AFC North, where we take a look at the other AFC North teams and talk about how they're doing. And they're all doing better than the Bengals. You know, all three of y'all are doing better than the Bengals because all y'all are in the playoffs, and we're sitting at home wondering if we're going to fire one of our coaches or any of our
No,
coaches.
y'all be in the playoffs next year.
Well,
We'll
yeah,
have 14. We'll have
so.
4 teams in the playoffs next year. That's going to be
I think so, but it
that's
doesn't
going to
feel
be
good.
that's
Right
going to
now.
be something.
I think so, but
Yeah,
it doesn't feel good right now. But
y'all
so
might have the best quarterback in the division.
the Ravens, in particular. By the way, everybody in the AFC North, other than the Bengals, posted at least 11 wins this year. So, best division in football?
No doubtly. No, not even close.
I don't think there's much of a doubt, but I think next year when the Bengals are good again, then it's not even going to be fair. Like, I mean, the AFC North, I think, is about to dominate. Now, that also depends on the Steelers because Ben Roethlisberger, who knows what he's going to do, and also he's not playing that well lately anyway. So I don't know if the
Nathan Rudolph
Steelers are
might
going
be
to
the
stay
quarterback of
super
the future.
relevant for too much longer, but we'll see. Either way, I think the AFC North is going to be the most competitive division in football for a long time, especially considering you got 3 Heisman winners as franchise quarterbacks in that division. And then we'll see what the Steelers do. Who knows? But anyway, the Ravens secured the AFC's number 5 seed, which is not nearly as important as the NFC's number 5 seed because
I know.
Because
It's
the Bucs
unfair.
get to play the Washington football team. But
It's unfair.
yeah, but the Ravens get to play the Tennessee Titans, which cannot feel exciting for Ravens fans. Actually, I was talking to the guest that we had on the podcast on the last podcast. I was talking to Zach, and he is, I think, a little more optimistic than I think most Ravens fans are of their chances of beating the Titans. But even he'll admit that it's like, yeah, well, we can't do what we've been doing against them. And I mean, don't forget that the Ravens have played the Titans 4 times since Derrick Henry has been a member of the Tennessee Titans. You know how many times they've won?
0?
Once.
Mm.
They did win once. When I believe Marcus Mariota was the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, I get you. I think they
maybe it was Zach.
I had the chances this weekend actually.
Because
I don't think the Titans.
I don't think.
The Titans aren't as good as they were last year.
Well, I think they're exactly as good as they were last year. I don't think they were that good last year. I think they just kind of got hot at the end, honestly.
Got hot? Yeah.
The thing about the Ravens is I think last year the Ravens got that bye, and then I think that it pretty much killed all of their momentum because they got the week off, and then they just kind of I don't think they took it as seriously as they needed to. Or maybe they did. I don't know what the issue really was, but I think the thing the Ravens are going to have on their side this week, going up against the Titans in the first round of playoffs, is momentum. Now they're still going to have to stop Derrick Henry, and they're not typically very good at stopping Derrick Henry. But
so what you're telling me is, wait, hold up. What you're telling me is that if a team have a bye, you kill momentum even though they're really good.
Depending on the team, I don't think that the Chiefs are going to. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have a problem. But like the Ravens last year, I don't think the Ravens. I think the bye week might have actually inhibited the Ravens last year. The last time these two teams played, the Ravens barely managed to get the game to overtime before Derrick Henry ran all over them in overtime. Derrick Henry was their problem in the playoffs last year too. Their biggest problem in the playoffs last year.
I think they found a way to beat them this year. I'm sorry, I just gave my prediction away this week, but
yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen. But we'll talk about that on the predictions episode. The Steelers, on the other hand, as we know, are playing the Browns. They're hosting the Browns. Who just got in with a win over the Steelers. but that was against a Steelers team that was not featuring Ben Roethlisberger, Marquise Pouncey, T.J. Watt, Cameron Hayward, some cornerback. I forget what his name was. But
Joe Hayden.
well,
Joe
Joe
Hayden
Hayden,
either.
but I think Joe Hayden was out for like a medical, like COVID or something like that.
He was out for
There was
COVID. Yeah, he had COVID. Yeah.
I think
He
there
tested
was a,
positive
there
for
was a
COVID.
starting cornerback who was just being rested or something like that. I forget what his name was, but the point being that the Steelers were resting a bunch of starters. The last time y'all faced the Steelers at full strength, they absolutely beat you guys down. So, um, from the perspective of the Steelers, because we're talking about the state of the Steelers in the AFC North right now, from their perspective, that bodes well for them. Now they've also, not looked so great over the last couple of weeks. They did beat the Colts and they rested all their players against the Browns, so that one's kind of a wash. But they also had to put together a remarkable comeback against the Colts. They almost blew that game. And
Yeah,
if the Steelers had lost that game the way that it was kind of looking like they were going to, we'd be having a very specific discussion about the Steelers right now. And there's also, if they hadn't beaten the Colts, there's no way they would have rested their starters against you guys because that game would have been for the division. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't because you lost the Jets. So maybe they would have been resting their starters, but I also think maybe they wouldn't have been resting their starters because you gotta win before you go to the playoffs. You can't go into the playoffs on a 4-game losing streak. I mean, I think if I could be wrong, but I believe the Bengals tried doing something like that back in like
Thank God they beat the Colts last week.
2009 or 2012 or something like that, and they just fell ass backwards into the playoffs, and it was awful.
Thank God they beat the Colts last week. That's for sure.
The Steelers appear to have gone through the process of being humbled and bouncing back before the playoffs started, though. So that bodes well for them. And I hate to say that because I don't want them to do well, but it is true that they got humbled and they did it early enough to the point where they can bounce back for the playoffs. So maybe that's not such a bad thing. But the state of the AFC North right now generally is just one word: great. We got 3 teams in the playoffs. The only team that's not in the playoffs is my Bengals, and there's some hope for the future there, but that's really about it at the moment. We'll see what kind of happens as time goes along. It is now about 3:30, and I don't believe the Bengals have announced anything about any coaches being gone yet. So that's not ideal, but it's probably about to be expected. If the Bengals do bring all of their coaches and assistants back next year, they're going to have some stuff to answer for. That's all I got to say. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Battle of Ohio podcast, guys. Appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate you guys interacting when you can. We love having guys like you on. If you want to come on, just hit me or Thomas up. We'll find a schedule. We'll find a good day for you to come on. You can come on for the podcast or predictions, or you can come on for both. We'd be happy to have you on for any of it. In general, we've been, so far we've had TJ Wright, Alex Peterman, and Zach Colgan all on, and they've all been fantastic. So, we love doing those kind of segments. We love talking about this with all you guys, and we love the interaction. And, you guys are helping us grow this podcast, and I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure Thomas does too.
Yep, sure do. Love y'all.
Yep. Anyway, you can find me. You can follow anything I do on Facebook at facebook.com/thephelps and Twitter at Kyle Phelps92. Then Thomas, you can find him at T_star94 on Twitter and Instagram, and then he's also on Blowdown. He's on YouTube at Blowdown page. Doing comedy videos. He just released a new Black Baker Mayfield, right?
Yep.
Still haven't watched that yet. I think I'm going to do that after we're done recording the predictions.
It's a good watch,
anyway,
actually. It's a real good watch.
Yeah.
It's a good watch.
But anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. To all my Bengals fans, it's going to get better. It will. Just hang in there. It'll get better. I'll leave y'all with a who day.
Y'all gonna be fine, Bengals fan. Trust me. Y'all gonna be fine.